Call the meeting to order, please, and welcome each of you to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Edenton Town Council for the month of May. We have copies of the agenda in the back, which will be our guideline for this evening. And if you will, please now stand and join with me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Steve, did you do the invitation? And Councilman Biggs will offer an invocation after.
Somebody figure out how to do it.
How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Murray Williams has been our videographer for the council meetings here for the past 20 years. And it is our practice here in our community, among our employees and others who help us do our job, to recognize their service, particularly over a period of time that Murray has been with us. He has provided our gathering here with the highest Nielsen rating in Edenton. It's surprising how many people will stop those of us seated here on the street and make a comment about what was said or what they couldn't hear, or anyway, the quality of the work has been fantastic. He kept up with his equipment and his technology to present the best viewing that he can for you all to observe what goes on up here. And Murray, we thank you for it, and we want to share a little memento with you. Murray Williams, Edenton Chowan Council videographer, 20 years of dedicated service, presented with thanks, the Mayor and Town Council members, May 12, 2015. Thanks, sir. Each year we ask boards, commissions, organizations throughout the community who receive financial support from the town of Edenton to present an annual report of their activities and some insight as to not only what they have been doing, but also what the future looks like as well. The Edenton Chowan Partnership is the newest organization in Edenton that the council has set aside funds to help with its operation. And Frank McGlory, I hope all of you know him, is our executive director, and he's here tonight to present us with his annual report. Frank?
Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to see so many people here. I'm sure they're here for this report. Your guidance in terms of making it brief, knowing how much work is on your agenda tonight. For those of you not totally familiar with the work that we do, we are an economic development entity, but we're distinct in that we have three particular thrusts or foci to our mission. We deal obviously with growing existing businesses and attracting new businesses to the area, but we also focus our attention on tourism development with the specific purpose of attracting retirees who might want to relocate to Edenton or Chowan County. Finally, we are committed to the idea of working within the educational community to build a stronger system to support our youth and our adults as they go through the educational process from kindergarten up through post-secondary education. We have a particular focus on working with businesses that need workforce development and collaborating between the community college system, university systems in North Carolina, and the employment site so that we can help our employers maintain a cutting edge in terms of their labor pool and within the specific operation of the organization. So having said that, what I'd like to do, well, I wasn't expecting it to go quite like that. Like that? It was quick. That's what you call for speed reading. Or a trigger finger, one or the other. This gal. Let me try this again. We use some standard forms for marketing. Many of you are familiar already with it. We certainly cooperate and collaborate with the Department of Commerce, specifically their new public-private entity that utilizes the resources of both the public and private sector to generate leads and spread those leads or prospects throughout the state. We've been particularly enthusiastic about this new organization because we've received a number of prospect leads from it, and that's what it takes to initiate the beginnings of economic development. We also have been maintaining our website. We've created a new Facebook page for retirees in Edenton, and we use it as kind of a springboard for those people interested in relocation to see what life is like here and what kinds of activities retirees are engaged in this community. We also do something very traditional. We take out a half-page ad in a major publication that is used by the NC East Alliance in their economic development activities, and that means trade shows, clients they visit around the United States, different manufacturers that they think might have an interest in the eastern and northeastern sections of our state. So that's pretty straightforward in terms of the way we promote ourselves. In the tourism and relocation area, this is what we've done so far. We've helped the community with the fee to get the certified status. We were happy to do that. We created a special committee within the partnership that is the steering committee for this initiative in the community. We did some work in terms of going out to different trade shows, lifestyle shows for retirees to do some scouting to see what kinds of activities other communities, other states were engaged in to attract retirees. This year we participated in 2 such trade shows. We brought the data back. We've started a DRIP campaign, which is an electronic communication campaign where we take our contacts that are generated from those activities and we communicate with them on a regular basis. We send them different products, a brochure, postcards. We try to connect them in the electronic communication in terms of the different sites we already have working in this area, the TDA site, our own site. And those things appear to be working good, but we're only at the beginning of this process. We think it's an area that deserves a lot more attention and can benefit us in terms of relocation, sales of real estate, expansion of the number of people living in the community. So all of that is good work. We are also working, this is a long-term project, this last bullet, we're working with developers to provide accommodations that will get seniors not only through the stage of life they're in now, but through the end of life. So we're looking for an establishment that can provide tiered living from assisted all the way through skilled nursing home facilities for a number of the retirees that live here. What we've discovered is that a number of people that are here have to relocate to access those services when they reach that point where they're dependent on others for assistance. So we think this is an important goal that needs to be achieved in order for us to fulfill that commitment of being a certified retirement community. here in this state. In the education and workforce development, Frank Baum, those of you that don't know him, Frank has done a wonderful job heading up this committee. He's about ready to leave the area in June. He's going back to Pennsylvania a little sooner than he had planned. But we certainly owe a lot to Frank for his leadership in terms of the Education and Workforce Development Committee. He's brought together over 26 educators and other professionals involved in workforce development and education in this region. The primary purpose behind that committee is to bring people together to start communication, start collaboration, because the resources we have are limited, and through this collaboration we can achieve much more. I've got one example up here. I could list 20, but this is the most significant, I think, from our point of view. 11 students presently that are enrolled at the high school are also enrolled simultaneously at the College of the Albemarle, here at the Edenton campus. Those students, when they graduate from high school in 2016, will graduate simultaneously from COA with an associate's degree. It doesn't get better than that. This is a way to build persistence and completion in terms of post-secondary education. It's a way to build stronger skill development, and it certainly is the result of this wonderful collaboration that's existed or sprang out of the work of the Education Committee, so we take a lot of credit for it. But clearly, we also applaud these young men and women who are going through the program. It's important to note, if you look at that number up there on the second line of the third bullet down, over 50 students in high school are now taking classes at the collegiate level. So this is a great achievement. I think it builds a strong sense of purpose in these young men and women, and will build stronger success rates when they leave this context and perhaps go on to university education. I think another direct result of this collaboration that we have between the high school system and the college is COA is building a biology lab this summer in Edenton, and this will support more work in the biological sciences, which we think is very profound in terms of its impact on what we're doing in food quality and food service areas, particularly as it relates to agribusiness and food processing. So we're thinking that this is another huge asset that's about to fall into place. In economic development, what I'd say up front, just to give you a quick update, because I was here a couple of months ago, we are working on the grocery store situation. We've been working very closely with Jennings Gray of Electric Cities. He's targeted a grocery store chain that might have an interest in this area. Through the work of the mayor and others, we've contacted owners of an alternative site, so we're not totally dependent on Food Line leaving its present site when it goes over to Show and Crossing. We feel positive about this step, but I would tell you it's not an easy process. It's going to take some more time, but I think we've got cooperative landowners that are willing to bring the land together so it could be purchased for the development of a new grocery store, and we do have a chain that's interested. The question is getting them to take that next step forward and actually purchasing the property and relocating a store here. But it's good news at the front end. I'm happy to report it back to you. I hope in future months we've got more concrete information to share with you. So that's going well. I think one of the largest projects that we've been dealing with, and I'm not just going to say this year, I'm going to say for a considerable length of time here in Edenton, is the Jimbo Jumbo's expansion project. We're looking at 280,000 square feet of new building. And we're also looking at the hiring of 78 new employees. This is a substantial boom to the negative stats that we're looking at right now in terms of poverty level and unemployment, so we're thinking that's a positive. The partnership has ownership of 8.5 or 8.8 acres adjacent to Jimbo's property, and we are gifting it to Jimbo's to support this project. Our gift is being used as a match in part for some of the other grants we're eligible for through the municipality to upgrade some of the infrastructure there. And we are grateful to do this in terms of supporting a company that's been very loyal to the area and continues to be very interested in growing its plant and expanding its business here. So that project, based on our latest information, is scheduled to begin mid-June in terms of the site work. And so we feel really positive about that. That was a great project to work with, very decisive leadership, very interested in moving out on a timely basis. We've been working with other area businesses, which I think is great. They're already here, who have an interest in growing their operations, and two have initiated growth plans at this time. I'm not free to talk about them specifically, but I think this is probably the best kind of contact you can make in economic development when you have companies that are already working in your community and want to grow and develop and move to that next phase. We've been working with Apex, which is a wind company that is trying to initiate the timber mill wind utility here in Perquimans and Chowan County. We're looking at the potential of between 100 and 100 plus wind turbines. Those turbines are costed out right now. The cost has dropped from about $5 million to $3 million each. So when you add those numbers together, we're looking at a utility that could have a substantial economic impact on the tax revenue base of the area. So that's an important project from our point of view. They're also estimating that they'll hire about 15 technical employees to, highly paid technical employees to maintain the site. So that's still out there. The planning date right now is construction sometime in 2016. But they have a number of permits to go through, and that's a very elaborate and complicated process. We've been working directly with Mike Waltrop, who is handling the Lewis Marine building, and I'm happy to report to you that's a fantastic building. If you have not seen it, it is a fantastic building, great construction, pristine in terms of the quality, the interior quality of it. It's presently under contract to an agricultural chemical company that is already working in this community, and they're estimating not a lot of new jobs, but 5 to 7 new jobs that could generate out of that. We're also working with a propane distributor that's presently in Camden and wants to relocate, expand and relocate here in Edenton to hit this part of the market. And we're also looking at the potential of 5 to 6 new jobs there. They're going to be looking at some industrial property we own in Airport Industrial Park Phase 2. So that's also a positive move, I think, kind of an inch at a time in terms of overall impact. And moving forward, we're going to continue in tourism and relocation to work with developers who would be interested in assisted living accommodations and other accommodations specifically designed for seniors. We're also, we've been collaborating very closely with the Tourism Development Authority that does a great job in this area. And we feel rather than reinvent the wheel, the collaboration between our efforts in retiree relocation and their efforts to generate more visitors to the area is a very productive way to work. So we'll continue cultivating and working in that relationship. We're going to continue to analyze the data we collect to help us be more informed as we go forward in dealing with this special population. And attend more shows, use Google AdWords to get our word out. Education and workforce development. The collaboration is working. We want to maintain it. Even though Frank is going to be leaving and relocating, we need to find leadership for the committee that will continue this collaborative effort because it's had a significant impact on the quality of education and providing benefits to the students we have in our system. We're going to continue to work with business and industry to meet their workforce development training needs as well. In economic development, we've got great relationships now that are producing positive results. We're going to continue to work those relationships at the state and the regional level. We're also going to continue to work with Commerce and the Rural Development Center. For those of you that don't follow it in the newspaper, we have been receiving substantial support from these state-level entities in supporting our economic development and supporting infrastructure improvements. There is definitely a sense in Raleigh with this administration to support this northeastern sector of the state. They recognize that poverty is profound here. They recognize that rural development is a difficult and challenging activity, and they're trying to help us by providing us with resources as the needs surface. So they have been very good, and I would also say that Golden Leaf Foundation has also been supportive of our efforts as well. And basically, as you might expect, we'll continue to work with individuals right in our own community that are interested in starting or growing their business. On the metrics side, take a look at these unemployment rates. All right? Now, at the risk of being somewhat cynical, when I look at these rates, they're coming down substantially. But when you talk to people in the field using this data, and you talk to people on the streets, I don't know that the data adequately reflect unemployment. I think in some cases, and counselors have told me this, some of the people that were applying for unemployment have either stopped out of the system or they've been taken up by other subsidy programs, but it skews the numbers somewhat. When you look at our poverty level, it still is high. Now granted, this is based on the latest data I can get, which was out of 2013 from the census, so it's 29%. But I think what we're talking about is a very challenging dynamic here that has to be overcome, I think, a piece at a time. So at the risk of not exploring the other metrics in terms of who owns a house, who lives in that house, who rents a house, I think the bottom line is, as far as the partnership is concerned, how many jobs can we create that will offset this unemployment, real or unreal, deflated or not, offset unemployment, improve this dynamic in terms of the poverty level. And what I'm counting right now, and SMA has been slow in coming, it's our expectation they will be here this summer after the construction project is wrapped up over Town Hall. I'm looking at 30+ jobs there. I'm looking at 78 at Jimbo, so we're already over 100 new jobs. And I want to add on the pending side possibly another 10 to 15+ jobs with those two companies I mentioned. So some of these are slow bits, some are large steps, but when you start assembling them together, I think we're talking about the building blocks that can actually change the dynamic for people living in the community, particularly on the unemployment side and those in poverty. So I feel really good about this. In closing, even though I've been given the directive to wrap this thing up quickly, I hope I covered the territory adequately for you, and I want to ask for your continued support as a town council of the partnership and the work it's doing. I think we've got a great team. We've got great support from the county and the town and the private sector, pardon me. And I think what you don't find in the metrics, my belief is, and I've only been at this for a little less than 3 years, is we've got what I consider a developed level of cooperation between the county and the town, and people come together easily, they solve problems quickly, and they're creating opportunities for businesses that are in place, and they're supporting them as they go forward. So I don't know what more we could ask for. I think the dynamic is really positive, and in talking to people that have been involved, they really feel like we're on the edge of meaningful progress in the area. So that's what I report to you tonight. Any questions?
Good job.
Thanks.
Sorry to hear Frank's leaving you, because I've been to a lot of education meetings that he has either been there, he had someone there, or he was there with a lot of teachers, and it's a shame that we're losing, because he really has. But I'm sure you'll find someone that might not take his place, but maybe will fill his shoes somewhat.
We're looking for someone that would be just half as good. I mean, Frank is leaving a little sooner than he had planned. His house was on the market. He wasn't thinking he was going to be leaving for about 1.5 years, but an opportunity came up, and suddenly he's caught short, and we're caught short. And he's sad about it, and I think he's not had time to kind of make that transition. His heart is really in Edenton. But he is from Pennsylvania, and that's where he's going back to. Thank you all.
Thank you, Frank. As Frank mentioned, well, he didn't mention, but he did mention that he's been at this for a little over 2.5 years. He and his wife Patty came to Chowan County to retire, and then he got discovered with the formation of the Edenton Partnership and agreed to serve as its director on a part-time basis, which has turned pretty much into a full-time job and just half-time pay. But we thank you and the other board members and everyone involved with the partnership. We appreciate your good work. Okay. We now have a series of public hearings, and the way they're going to be presented is going to be from Anne Marie's going to present the staff report. As you know, our planner Sam Barrow is on military leave, and all of his work has been pushed into the manager's office, but she's prepared and has a lot of help, and will present each of these cases to us tonight. There's action required, council members, on all 4 of them. So we will hear the presentation and then take the appropriate action. Hear the presentation, have a public hearing, and then take the appropriate action in that order on each one of these items listed on our agenda. Please, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just, before I start the presentation, want to report that Sam is getting ready to deploy to Kosovo. His troops are training, I believe, now in Texas, and we really do miss him. I miss him, but we do, as the mayor said, have a lot of good support. We have a card there. If you all would like to sign that, we're going to send that off to Sam before he leaves the country. He did prepare this staff report for me before he left, and I'm going to present the text amendment pertaining to our sign ordinance. And we have representing the applicant, Jim Kane. Jim is with the Cameron Company, and that's the company that owns Chowan Crossing Shopping Center. And so this request has come from Jim's company. The planning board reviewed the request and recommended approval. You'll see that the existing Chowan Crossing sign, our existing ordinance, only allows for the shopping center sign to list the name of the shopping center. That ordinance, that provision was written in our ordinance when the ordinance was adopted back in 1989. And then when you look on the right-hand side, you see a picture of the Edenton Village Shopping Center. And that sign was allowed under the old ordinance prior to 1989, so that was grandfathered. The applicant has asked that the amendment, amendment be added to allow for the freestanding sign to contain the designation of the name of the individual stores. We attempted to make this amendment about a year ago, and we missed something in the amendment where we did not increase the size of the sign. So we're coming back to you requesting that the freestanding sign be allowed to not exceed 105 square feet in sign surface area and not be more than 20 feet high. Let's see if I can show you. This would be an example of what would be proposed. You can see where still the shopping center name would be identified, and then the various tenants. There are examples all over where other communities allow this type of signage. And the thought is, as motorists are driving, if they're not familiar with the area, they generally want to look on the sign to see what is inside the shopping center. At the planning board hearing, we had one of the tenants came and spoke in favor of the sign ordinance. Our friends, the franchise owner of the Subway, desperately wants this amendment. He feels like he's missing out on business because people don't know that he's in the shopping center. Jim, can I ask a quick question? At the planning board meeting, we weren't sure where you were going to locate the sign. Have you decided?
There hasn't been any final decision yet, but we're going to make sure we take into consideration the trees so that we won't have to come back. But the trees are on our property. You know, the other thing that happens with shopping centers over time, these trees grow larger and larger and hide the shopping center. So that it makes the sign even more important to be able to identify those other tenants.
And when you say take care of the tree, trim.
Tree. No,
Keep the beautiful tree.
Right, no chopping, just trim.
Okay.
Tree trim.
Mayor, I think that is all of the staff report, and anybody has any questions? Otherwise, I'll return to the...
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Anybody have a question of the staff report? Okay, hearing none, we will open this case as presented to change the size and surface size and height of the sign. This would be citywide now, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think there's another sign out on Peanut Drive that lists the businesses that are located down there as well. So it is potentially a big help to people trying to find the businesses located on these properties. So anyone would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this case, please come to the podium and let us have your name and address, and we'd be happy to hear from you. Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing relative to the case to change the sign at our shopping centers. All right, anything else from council members? Chair would entertain a motion to approve the UDO section change to reflect new sign size.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right. So be it. We'll make that change and now move on to our second case for the evening. And this is a request from the town of Edenton to rezone property, which is part of the future campus of the Edenton Police Department. So Anne-Marie, if you would give us a report on that too, please.
Mayor, this is extremely unusual. The town is the applicant. The town is requesting the town council rezone property. This is a piece of property that we recently completed the acquisition on 137 East Albemarle Street. And this is part of the site that will include our new police station. The property is currently zone R5, and we're requesting that the zoning map be changed to neighborhood commercial. You can see this is the tax map outlined in blue is the property. The town just this week acquired 2 pieces of property from Steve Lane and Larry Sellers on Oakham Street, and we have one more acquisition that we're working on completing. These 3 properties on North Oakham Street are already zoned neighborhood commercial, and so we're requesting that this piece be rezoned neighborhood commercial. I will bring up a quick picture of the zoning map to show you what the zoning looks like around the property. On my computer at the office, I was able to flip the you. I'm really missing Sam. He was my IT guy, and the fire chief's on vacation. Anyway, the property around East Albemarle is residential predominantly, and then, you know, the area that I showed you to the east is neighborhood commercial. In the staff report that I submitted to the council, I noted an analysis of our future land use map, and the future land use map indicates that site to be for residential, but again, be reminded that the area adjacent to it is neighborhood commercial, and the future land use map is not supposed to be site specific. So when you look at what other uses are around that map, it clearly is appropriate for this property to be rezoned to neighborhood commercial, and that's what we are requesting. And Mayor, just as a reminder, the council, after the public hearing, the council will have to make a finding that whether or not they agree that the future land, that the rezoning is consistent with the future land use map.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, any questions of the staff report? Okay, something may come to you before we vote, so with that, we'll move now to a public hearing for this case, which is a request, as stated, by the town of Edenton to have a zoning change on the property described that will become part of the area where the police station will be located. So if anyone would like to speak in support of or in opposition to this request, please take the podium and let us hear your name, and we'll be happy to hear your concerns. Okay, hearing none, we'll close that public hearing. And council members, do you have any further questions or items you want to bring up relative to this request?
Mayor, I've heard this one before, sitting through planning board meetings and the ones prior to and the ones that are coming up. So it has been explained pretty well through there. They did a really good job going through this, as they always do.
They did, and thank you for mentioning that. It's been a very complex process, but thanks to our legal counsel and our staff, we worked our way through it and were able to secure the property needed to do the project. First motion we need, council members, is a motion that states that the rezoning is consistent with the future land use plan.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion and a second to that effect. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. All right, and the second action we need to take there is to approve the request.
So moved. Second.
All right, motion and a second to approve. Questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right. Case carries. Next case, please, ma'am.
Yes, sir. The next case pertains to another rezoning request, and this is not coming from the town, it's coming from our friend Martin Barker, who's here tonight. This is property located at 102 Virginia Road. The staff report detailed the description of the property. We noted that the current use is, it's a single-family residence. It's on property that is zoned R10, residential R10, which means a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet. The property is 1.3 acres of land, and I'm going to pull up a copy of the zoning map, and that will show, that will give you a good description of what is around the property. Directly across the street is property right here, and this neighborhood, Mara Circle, is zoned R10. This lot is in between Batham Road and Mara Circle. Directly across the street is, you can see the orange color, that's all highway commercial. So across the street, of course, is the Walgreens property, and then a little bit to the east is the former gas station, and then you can see all that property that north is zoned highway commercial. Sort of catty corner to the property is Medical Arts. That's where Dr. Vincuski's office park is, and then of course the county ag building. So that gives you a good idea of the surrounding property and how it is all zoned. The request is to rezone the property highway commercial. The staff report detailed all of the services that are available in terms of public services. I won't read through all of those. The land use plan does identify this as residential, but again, the land use plan is not meant to be site-specific, parcel-specific, and when you look what is surrounding the property, the other uses fall within commercial, medical, medical arts. The planning board recommended approval of the rezoning, and with the finding that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the applicable land use classification as defined in the town's future land use map. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and again, Martin is here also as the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Council members, anybody have questions of that staff report at this point? If not, we'll once again open up the floor for public comment. If you have comments relative to this case, please come to the podium. We'd be happy to hear from you.
Stephen Lane, 723 McMullen Avenue. Mr. Mayor, Councilman, I spoke at the planning board meeting concerning this particular application and would like to reiterate several of the points that I made there to you to show you my concerns. The area, as you can see here, is in conjunction with a very well laid out residential area. And as you look at the combination of things going on that section of Virginia Road, the one side, the side where Walgreens is commercial from the corner of Broad Street all the way out to 17. This is the only remaining neighborhood in the area. To take a chunk out, quite frankly, I think is inappropriate. It is spot zoning at best. With no special request for what it is to be used for, and with only a few weeks now since you have just added to CH zoning within the area on Broad Street and open CH areas also in the area, I don't believe this is needed to be added to the inventory. More specifically, my concern has to do with safety. The UDO section 213 on entrance to streets is very specific to these. All driveway entrances and other openings onto streets within the town's planning jurisdiction shall be constructed so that vehicles can enter and exit from a lot in question without posing any substantial danger to themselves, pedestrians, or vehicles traveling on abutting streets. This is the busiest corner in the town. Our fire department uses it. Our school uses it twice a day, heavily with bus traffic. There are big trucks that are 53-foot trailers coming through there. There's stacked traffic. Walgreens has its exit onto Virginia Road facing the curb cut to this property. If the current curb cut is to be used for entrance for CN use, it would add to the congestion. Not only would that congestion be added by that property going to this particular use, it would also be added to by the optometrist's property, where they have already put in some new building for use, which is not yet occupied, so there will be increased traffic there. There will be increased traffic if the Shell station goes back into business. And if the county does in fact sell their building for some commercial use, traffic patterns there will also be different from what they are now, because they're very minimal. So my major concern here is that this is really a dangerous corner to add more to it. And to have the area used or continue to be used as residential fits with programs that Councilman Dixon has talked about, where we have a combination of uses within a very good area where you can walk to stores. This area is perfect for that. There is only one section of sidewalk that is missing to get all the way down to the shopping center. Additionally, there are, I guess I've counted something like 45 homes in Morris Circle. I own 3 of them. I'm in and out of there constantly. The value of those homes has maintained themselves. They are in good shape. It is an excellent starter home area, very quiet, and I quite frankly believe that the changing of zoning of this particular parcel would lower the value of the homes in Morris Circle. In addition to that, my personal experience of getting in and out of Morris Circle with today's traffic patterns is difficult enough. So again, the question, which I think is major to this, is the question of safety. Mr. Mayor, I would remind you that in your recent comments before the redevelopment district program, talking about the ability to do zoning and that the work of the planning board was real planning when it came to that program, I don't believe that this particular application fits the definition that you gave the planning board at that evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Questions, comments?
I'd like to make a comment.
Wait a minute, hold on one second. I called out too soon. We got another voice to be heard from.
Good.
Good evening. My name's Larry McLaughlin. I live at 118 Butternut Lane. The area in question, I concur with Steve's summation, but when I look at the property, I see that corner impact, assuming that that building that's there is destroyed and something else goes in its place. The side to the, I guess it would be the west side, and the surrounding property would then, which is residential now, would then have a business right in their backyard or side yard. I certainly wouldn't enjoy that too much. The other thing is, the style of the house is a bungalow, and it's not. It's a style that's. There's a number of them in this part of town. On North Broad Street, just up from the old Shell station on the right, there's several to kind of run down right now, but it's a nice style. A lot of people like that. There's a couple others down Virginia Road heading towards 17 on the right. So it's a significant style. It might not be appreciated as very historic, but it is a significant style which is represented in town, and it would be a shame to lose it. And that in and of itself would lead me to say it would not be a good idea. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Larry. Anyone else have any comments relative to this case? Okay, seeing no further commenters, we will close the public hearing portion relative to the case to rezone Mr. Parker's property. Council members, it comes back to you. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
As I understand, the first time that we had a discussion or I saw anything on this particular property, it referred specifically to business that was going there. I have to agree with Larry on the building that's there and with Steve on the traffic, but also the situation of that residential area with business at that entrance, and it's because of the shape of the property really extending into the residential area more thoroughly than would be normal. And I hesitate as to why we would be zoning it openly for business when we don't know what the business is. I'm not comfortable with that. It seems to me the only legitimate reason for doing it would be to raise the value of the property, which would be an inappropriate zoning reason. I don't know. I don't know what's really planned with it. I suppose I'm asking that question, but if we don't have an answer to that, I'm not in favor of it.
Other questions or comments from the council members?
That particular question was asked during the planning board meeting. And I don't want to speak for Mr. Parker, but at the time, and I don't know if things have changed in the last 15 days or whatever it's been, there was no plans.
No.
You had, correct me if I'm wrong, you had someone that had talked to you and then they backed out?
It was withdrawn. And I don't know what, who you spoke with when it had been discussed before, because to my knowledge, I haven't applied for this. If there's somebody that has been wanting to buy it, I don't know about it. If you would tell me who it is, I'd be glad to speak with them. I don't know. I really don't. It was my understanding, and as I said here, I have no basis for that other than an understanding that there was a usage plan for the property for business use. Not to my knowledge. It was at one point, but it was withdrawn. And I don't know who that was. Oh. I don't know what company it was.
And I'm not a traffic engineer and didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night and don't profess to be one. But I would certainly think coming out of a driveway on that side with a very wide open site, I'm just sitting here thinking, because I go by it several times a day myself too, Steve. I would just think coming out of there would be a lot easier than coming out of Walgreens. Especially if you're turning right. And you know, we did the, as you and I discussed the other night after the planning board meeting, this council has before looked at right in, right out only. Actually, we did it for Walgreens, the part that is on the Broad Street side, and we did it for the housing development that's going out behind Duck-Through. So, you know, I would think in the name of safety, we would probably do that again. I can't speak for this council, but we would certainly look at it, and I would think we would certainly have, you know, the state look at it. You know, if right in, right out works for 2 other businesses or 3 other businesses, I would certainly think right in, right out would work for this.
Is it appropriate?
Sure.
To answer that point. A couple of things. I think that part of the problem that generates is very clear, that if you are going to limit the traffic flow from Virginia Road to the entrance of the property, that it will almost be incumbent upon any development for commercial to go onto one of the side streets, probably Batham in this case, for another entrance. Because if you are coming south or east from Virginia Road to make the corner at Broad Street, you have to then cross the traffic that's going the other direction out towards 17 to enter. And from what I understand, your proposed remedy to that would be that it would not be allowed. They couldn't make the entry.
They wouldn't be able to inside that.
So that there would only be one way to get in and get out of that property, and that would be going toward the hospital from Broad Street.
You know, again, if it worked for a complete housing development, I would think it would work for, and we're sitting here, you know, pulling straws out of the air because we don't know what's going on. We don't have any idea what's going to go there.
But I think what you have said is what I have been trying to say. This is a very difficult corner with traffic problems that exist and have a chance to get greater with the use of the properties that have been developed right next to it.
I can't agree. It's still, I mean, that corner's always been busy. You know, that's my 2 cents.
I don't. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to remind the council that if, depending on the proposed use, a conditional use permit likely would come before the planning board and the council based on the impact. If there was a proposed use that was going to generate a significant amount of traffic, chances are our use table has that categorized as a use that would require intensive review. And part of that intensive review could be a traffic impact assessment. And when Steve and Larry were selling the their property to Walgreens, Walgreens did not require in our ordinance a traffic impact assessment, but you all asked for one. You wanted one. What would be required, no matter what the use is, will be a driveway opening permit from DOT, and the engineers will review the location and make recommendations to the town, and we would have to sign off on that. So there's a lot of additional oversight that comes with site-specific development.
Thank you. Sambo?
I really struggle with this one. I've gone in and looked at it. I've talked to Steve a lot. I've, you know, read the planning board minutes, and I went back and read the UDO, and it's my understanding that any business that got put there would have, instead of maximum setbacks, they have minimum setbacks. So it would have to be massed up on the street.
Yes.
So, you know, that's where we worked really hard to get those architectural standards. So you would have something that was on the street that created a streetscape. We worked really hard to not have these big booming parking lots full of nothing in a neighborhood. And so that's one thing that protects the character. And I think that if, you know, I'm really supportive of things moving into the core of the town. I think that's a very healthy thing to have smaller things, you know, that move in and become part of the vibrant life of a community. I think all of that is consistent with the, you know, the Main Street goals and all of that. And so, I mean, I've really struggled with this one, but I think, you know, all in all, looking at the site and seeing what we might be able to attract there, I think it'd be probably a positive for the neighborhood.
All right, we can continue the discussion once we get a motion out. So we've completed the public hearing, and the chair will now call for a motion stating the proposed rezoning is consistent with the future land use plan.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to that effect. Any further comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, we've satisfied the future land use plan. Now, I would call for a motion to approve the request as presented.
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the zoning change as requested. Any further comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, the motion carries. The zoning request is granted.
Thank you all.
Yes, sir. Good luck. Okay, now we are at item D on our agenda, which represent a series of proposed text amendments to the UDO table of uses relative to multifamily dwelling units. And Anne Marie's going to present the staff report on that item, and as you notice, it has 6 parts to it, each of which will be voted on.
Mayor, I'm going to pull up on the screen a copy of our proposed use table, and there was a handout in the back. If anybody did not get one, let us know and we'll try to grab one for you. But it highlights the proposed changes that are being discussed tonight. And by way of background, the town council last summer authorized an agreement with Holland Land Planning Consultants to conduct a review of the town's ordinances, of the town's UDO, to specifically look at multifamily housing and whether or not we needed to make some amendments to the ordinance to reflect the council's desires to minimize multifamily housing. This came up in light of the tax credit housing application that the council voted down about 3 years ago, and the council was challenged in court, in Superior Court, and then again at the Court of Appeals level. The council spent a lot of money on legal fees, and we had great representation by our town attorney, and the council ultimately prevailed. But they wanted a comprehensive look at the zoning ordinance to see what changes needed to be made so that in the future, if developers were coming forward looking for opportunities to present applications for larger multifamily housing developments, that the ordinance would accurately reflect the plans and the wishes of the town. That assessment was worked on through comments and feedback provided by the town council, provided by staff, and then also several meetings with our planning board. Back last fall, the planning board reviewed the report and worked with Sam, and they made a series of specific recommendations to the council for amendments to the ordinance. And then it came to the town council, and the council worked and debated and discussed diligently. I think you all had 3 meetings where these amendments were reviewed and discussed, and ultimately the council voted to send it back to the planning board. And so our planning board met twice. They met 2 months reviewing the proposed amendments, and we reviewed those amendments with the council at our last committee meeting, and the recommendation was to move forward with the public hearing tonight for these proposed amendments. Well, I wanted to point out if you look on the left-hand side, go about halfway down the page, and you see multifamily dwellings. and then move to the right, and you see a yellow streak with nothing in the box under R40, R10, R14, and R20. I think that's really the major piece of this report. The recommendation was that the council eliminate multifamily dwellings from those zones. And multifamily dwellings were previously permitted in those zones based on conditional use permit. So that's a major change to our ordinance, and I think it's fair to say, Mayor and Council, that was something that there was unanimous consent that you were all in favor of doing. The next couple of items, there's been a lot of in-depth policy debate. It's all been healthy, interesting, but it's very policy-oriented. The ordinance included the recommendation is to include several different categories to allow for more definition of multifamily. Condominiums and townhouses, that is a new classification, and generally when we think of condominiums and townhouses, we think of those as real estate, as pieces of property within a development that are owned, probably fall under covenants, have a homeowners association, so they're very tightly controlled. We think having a definition, having that in the use table is a positive step forward, and the recommendation is that if you look up here at the top, there's a key where it says conditional, I'm sorry, here we go. The recommendation would be to allow condominiums and townhouses if it were in the proper zoning district and there were less than, if it was in the downtown district, less than 2 units or less could be approved administratively. If the recommendation or the proposal was for 3 units or more, that would require a conditional use permit, which requires a full hearing, advertised, notification to adjoining property owners and to the public at a planning board meeting, and then the same thing again at a council meeting. So that is all new. And then another thing that was recommended to be added was a specific category for the instance if a single-family home were to be converted to a condominium. And this came about through some hypothetical discussions, and the recommendation that ultimately came forth from the planning board is that in those instances, regardless of the number of units that would be created through that conversion, if the conversion is going from single family to condominium, the recommendation is that a permit, a conditional use permit, which again requires planning board and town council hearing and public notice and adjoining property notice. That would be allowed in the R10 zone, the R5 zone, and the downtown commercial zone, as well as the neighborhood commercial zone. And then going down to the last item that you see the yellow highlight, single-family conversion to a duplex or apartment. And that definition generally would mean renter, could be owner-occupied with renters in the units, but it would not be the sale of condominiums. The single-family home would still be owned by one person and then would be rented out, but not sold. The recommendation is that if that application were to come forward, that it would require, again, conditional use permit, and all those steps leading up to what would be required for approval.
And that's much stricter than it is now.
It is. Right now, there's no...
So right now, you can do it without the town council coming or the planning board hearing it.
Correct.
You can just do it. Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure.
And then at the committee meeting, there were a lot of questions asked about, well, what about parking? What about fire codes? And so we prepared for the council a report that illustrated all of the other regulations and requirements that an applicant would be required to meet if they wanted to pursue a condominium or a duplex or a triplex. And our ordinance would require a lot of what's called plan review. We would have to look at, for instance, how big is the lot? What is the square footage of the lot? And then how many units are being proposed? And for each additional unit that is being proposed, there has to be more square footage in the lot. So that is a control, a regulation. I pointed out an example where there was a single-family house for sale in the R10 zone, and somebody wanted to purchase that and convert it to a duplex. And that would have been allowed, that is allowed today under the ordinance, but when we did the plan review, the lot was not big enough to support that second unit. There wasn't enough, it didn't meet the minimum lot requirements. It didn't meet the requirements for having enough parking based on our parking formula. So there's, I guess my point is, without reading through all of these regulations, there are probably 7 or 8 other requirements, other things that would have to be checked and verified and exist in order for an application for a conditional use permit to even come through. One thing that the fire chief pointed out is that the fire code has changed. I'm not sure how long ago that happened, but we don't see many, he calls them triplexes, because duplexes, the fire code requires certain things, but when you have a triplex or anything more than 3 units or more, firewalls are required, sprinkler systems are required, and depending on whether or not it's a 2-story building, exterior stairways are required. So all of those things would have to be reviewed for compliance. And then, of course, our minimum housing code, I think Councilman Quinn asked a question about, well, how big would the bedrooms have to be, and is there any regulation? And the housing code is very particular on size of sleeping area, size of windows, ceiling heights, that sort of thing. So there's a lot. I guess my point is to the council, there is a lot of oversight beyond a zoning use table chart.
Thank you, ma'am. If you will look, council, at your agenda, this works down from the larger units and land spaces to the last one, which is a 2-family dwelling duplex with new construction. And just prior to that, the one that's probably creating the most concern, conversion to duplex or apartments. So what we're going to do at this point, with the background having been laid, I'll read out the proposed change 1 through 6, and we'll have a public hearing on each one of those, and then we'll vote on each of the 6 as we conclude that process. So item 1 is the removal of multi-family dwelling units as a permitted use in the R40, R20, R14, and R10 zoning districts. Staff has already reported. Do you have any questions of Anne Marie at this point on that? Okay, hearing none, I'll open the floor for public comment on the changes as it relates to R40, R20, R14, and R10 zoning districts, whereby multifamily dwelling units would be removed. Okay, seeing no commenters, we'll close the public hearing relative to that UDO change. and the chair would entertain a motion to approve that change as presented.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second relative to the multifamily dwelling unit removal in those lot sizes as stated earlier. Any further questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. All right. Next, the removal of townhouse dwelling as permitted as a permitted use in R14, R10, R5, CD, and CN zoning districts. I'll open the floor to any of you who would like to speak on that particular change. Okay, seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing relative to that, and would entertain a motion to make the changes as presented.
I move.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second relative to townhouse dwellings. Any further conversation here? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, thank you. The third requested change is the addition of condominiums and townhouses as a permitted use by zoning and conditional use permit in R10, R5, CD, and CN zoning districts. And Anne Marie, just as a reminder, this particular one addresses where we didn't have anything before.
We did not have condominiums before, correct?
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll open up public comment with that as a permitted use.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
I understand all these other things, because I like to see Main Street, which we call Broad Street, vibrant with stores and places. The people that own some of the wonderful storefronts, is there any ruling that they can just turn it into an apartment and take away storefronts? I mean, if I own something downtown, anyone can just move. I'm talking about on the main
It's
level.
supposed to be on here.
All these, you want to make this town come alive. We've got all these beautiful first floor buildings with, you know, we only can have so many barber shops and real estate offices and stuff. I'm just wondering, for those that own, does any of these zones say that you cannot take those down? I mean, all our storefronts on Main Street, and someone can buy it and turn it into an apartment.
Yeah, I'll take that. We talked about that last time. The whole zoning district, if you change it so it has to be retail, I mean, it's something I think we need to study. That's not in here tonight. I mean, you know, I'm all about having retail on the ground floor downtown. The problem was when it got brought up last time, it was the whole district. So no living down, you know, on the first floor. So I went down to see Frances Ingalls and said, "What do you think about moving out?" And she wasn't very happy about that. So I mean, that's we got to get the zone straight. Then we can, you know, then we can get that piece
Well,
of.
like where our newspaper, one of the most beautiful building downtown. I mean, people, tourists, would just love to walk down another restaurant, another store, and then you find people are living.
Yeah. Well, those things will be great. And even if we did do something now, those things will be grandfathered in. But we got to.
But if I guess where I'm a rookie on this thing. If I own one of those buildings, then I could say no.
Yeah, you could say no anytime you want.
You can't put a restaurant in here. You can't do that. That's
It's your property. You can say what you want to, but we do need to study that. That's something that I hope that's something we need to get the planning board to look at if we decide we want to go and just try to have retail on the first floor. We have to get the zone straight so that you don't, there are a lot of residences currently in those zones. Steve Leary's in it, you know, the house beside the Barker House is in it. I mean, there are a lot of residences that are in it.
We ought to encourage people to.
I totally agree with that.
We don't want to encourage, I don't agree with that. We don't want to encourage ground floor residential.
That's not what we said. No.
I'm saying exactly what you're saying, Bob. I don't know whether you're understanding what I'm saying. I mean,
He's talking about the whole thing.
Yeah, and the whole thing, you cannot tell people like Francis Ingalls to move out of their house.
I'm not suggesting we
Because
tell
it is,
Francis
if
that.
you've looked at the zoning map, it is exactly.
I know exactly what
Okay,
it
well
is.
but then you can't pass one law.
It's a CN.
That says,
I know what it is.
you have to go back and you have to
But we have
review
to be
it.
careful what we pass here.
Well, this has nothing to do with that. That's not on here.
I know, but we're leaving a hole in that.
Well, I think we need to study that. We just, it's not, it didn't go to the planning board and we don't have it.
Public, the floor is yours.
Where are we now?
A question. Are you talking about
Can we get names?
globally the historic district?
No, we're talking about downtown commercial.
Okay.
Let me
That's not part of this, so that's why, you know.
let me remind you too, when you speak, to state your name for the record, please.
Bridget Paul.
Thank you. Okay, refresh me.
You're on item 3, right?
Yeah, I'm on item 3. We've had a public hearing. Chair would entertain a motion that we permit as presented.
So moved.
Mayor, I'm not comfortable with the way we're going about this at all.
Well, I'm asking for a motion right now, Bob. We can discuss it if we get a second. There's a motion on the table right now. Do I have a second?
For discussion, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
What is the motion, Mayor?
To allow for condominiums and townhouses as permitted use by conditional use permit and zoning in R10, R5, CD, and CN zoning districts.
And they are allowed or not allowed now?
They are, what's the status right now?
Condominium is not even defined in the ordinance.
Yeah.
So we're adding that definition to the ordinance. And townhouse previously was allowed in the R14, R10, R5, CD, and CN zone.
Council, further discussion on the motion?
But this, I just want to make clear, this doesn't have anything to do with living in the, I mean, what we do in the first floor of our downtown commercial, it's just not even on the agenda.
Well, it's showing condominiums and townhouses in R5, CD, and CN districts. How do you get in?
You have an elevator or stairs. I mean,
no, the way this thing is written, it makes, in CD and CN, it makes it legal to have a townhouse permitted in CD and CN. And if I own one of the buildings downtown, I want to make it a townhouse, I'll make it a townhouse. And I've got a front door. I'm not comfortable with the way we're going about this. We're opening up more problematic circumstances by trying to cut time on having this done in this manner.
But we're doing it under conditional use permit.
It doesn't make any difference. If you pass that particular one, you're opening CD and CN to have townhouses in Main Street, and it's everything that we've talked about not doing. To not have residential front door, sidewalk level. And this is approving it.
Sambo, do you have a concern about?
I mean, I think that would come back through the conditional part, and I think that that is something that we need to then take up with the planning board, which was sort of the next step to this. Because
it's been to the planning board.
Not this part of it. Not the no residences on our main street. This is saying that if you have,
it's here. We can't pass something like this without having that happen as a part of the UDO.
So when you take it out, that means you can't go up on the Quinn building and put condos all on the second, third, and fourth floors. You can't do things like...
This is called a condominium and townhouse.
You can't do the Mill Village, you can't do the Peanut Mill, you can't do those Jennifer Meters building. I mean, you're taking it out of all of that, which is a preservation tool.
I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about CD and CN. And I know where they are. And you do too.
Yeah,
am I wrong? No. Anne Marie?
But if it's got to come back to us, and somebody help me here, if
it's got to have a conditional use permit,
we can stop it with
What is a conditional use permit except that the person is going to come before the council, whoever that council may be at some point in time.
Correct.
And then that's another decision to be made.
Well, actually, it goes before the planning board first.
To have that occur.
But Bob, there's nothing now that stops any of that.
Yeah.
It is nothing.
The idea was that we would do something to stop it. We're enhancing it. We're making it easier. We're telling them to do it.
We're not making it a lot harder.
We're making it if we've got to do a conditional use permit.
Yes, you are. We're trying to enhance it. We're trying to...
You've done that. That's exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
This is not right for CD and CN. And I disagree.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion, and we have a motion on the table. All in favor of the motion? Is there further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to ask staff, a conditional use, correct me if I'm wrong here, so I'll make sure I'm making the right decision. Conditional use permit would start off with the planning board. And then the planning board would either yay or nay, and then it would come to us for a yay or a nay. Correct. So it would be up to two other entities to decide whether you could go downtown and put an entrance and put condos. Whereas right now, if somebody wanted to go buy Byram Hardware and put an entrance and put two condos down there, they could do it right now.
They could.
They could do it right now.
I understand. That's why we're here. Because I brought up that exact circumstance and said that Byram's decided not to be in that business anymore, and they're turning their building into condos.
They want to turn them into condos. They have to go through the process, Bob, before that happens.
I understand.
And it's evidential at that point. It's not opinion.
And I agree that we need to go back and, I think this is step one to what we're trying to achieve. Oh, let me say something.
We're making a huge error as a council to sit here and approve these as they're written.
Well, I think that the first step we do is to encourage condos, not on the ground floor, but downtown. If you looked at the main street...
You're saying encourage. What's that got to do legally? Nothing.
Well, that, I just think that we want condos downtown, not on the ground floor where the businesses are.
I agree.
And so I think that this is a step. We get that law in, and then I do think we need to go back.
The way it is written, Councilman, you're the attorney here.
I know, but I like to talk when I like to talk. So if you could just be quiet, let me say something, then you can talk. I mean, that's not working when we're both talking at the same time. So what I'm saying is I do think it's something the planning board needs to take up and look at potentially restricting the uses of the ground floor in our downtowns. I think that's something that people do. What's there would be grandfathered in, but we have to get it right. We can't do it in the whole district because there are residences. I mean, Francis Ingalls families lived there for 12 generations, and you can't suddenly pass some law that says she can't live in her house. We got to get the zoning district straight, and then we can work on that law. And that's an easy way to do it. You do these things one at a time, and hopefully get a better town in the end. So I'm finished now.
Can I talk?
Yeah, you can talk.
I'm still saying, what we're doing here is, as I understand it, there's a motion on the floor, and I appreciate that. We're, quote, having a discussion. If we vote in favor of this, we're saying this is an approval.
Correct.
For the UDO. We're making a change to the UDO.
That's correct. And there isn't...
I think that's inappropriate.
Okay.
And I think
you can express that in a vote. Is there any further or different conversation to be had on this subject? If not, I'm going to call a question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay. The ayes have it. The condition is approved. And I think it, and I, excuse me?
Are you going to give the public an opportunity to speak on this?
They already have.
I didn't hear it, Larry. I missed it if you offered it. I apologize.
I looked out and no one stood up.
Keith asked question, Bridget asked question.